Stuart Campbell, born 1958, was a builder who was convicted in December 2002 for the kidnap and murder of his niece Danielle Jones, 15, but lost an appeal on January 21, 2005. She disappeared on June 18, 2001, while walking to a bus stop in East Tilbury, Essex, where she lived. Her body has never been recovered, and Campbell has always maintained his innocence. It is unusual to prosecute for murder in the UK without a body, but police did find a pair of blood-stained stockings in his home, the DNA of which matched both Campbell and Danielle. This evidence was enough to convince the police that Danielle Jones was dead and that Stuart Campbell was responsible for her death. In his diary, which police used as evidence, Campbell revealed an obsession with teenage girls. Campbell also claimed Danielle had text messaged him, but evidence from mobile phone masts shows that when she supposedly texted him, his mobile phone was in the same place as hers, evidence that he had taken her mobile and used it to text his own. His mobile phone also disproved his alibi that he was in a DIY store half an hour's drive away in Rayleigh. In one 20-minute interview with the police, he said, "No comment to 50 questions," causing the police to describe him as uncooperative. A police superintendent told the BBC that he developed a relationship with Danielle that was certainly inappropriate and probably unlawful. She tried to disengage herself, but he resisted. At the end of his trial, Campbell was convicted of murder and abduction. He received a life sentence on the murder charge and a 10-year fixed sentence on the abduction charge, although it is still unknown how many years he must serve in custody before being considered for parole. It was then revealed that Campbell was known to pose as a photographer to take photos of teenage girls in parks. In 1976, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison for robbing a 16-year-old girl in the street, while in 1989, he was given a 12-month suspended sentence for forcibly detaining a 14-year-old girl in his house and taking photos of her in a karate outfit. The murder of Danielle Jones was an English murder case where nobody was found, and the conviction relied upon forensic authorship analysis of text messages sent on the victim's mobile phone. Jones's uncle, Stuart Campbell, a builder, was convicted in December 2002 of abducting and murdering Jones, October 16, 1985, see June 18, 2001, and lost an appeal in January 2005. Jones' body has never been recovered, and Campbell has always maintained his innocence. After the trial, controversy arose when it was revealed that Campbell had prior convictions for indecent assault on other girls of similar ages. The use of forensic authorship analysis of text messages in the case provoked research into its use. In different cases, disappearance and investigation, Jones was last seen in East Tilbury, Essex on June 18, 2001, while walking to a bus stop. Suspicion fell on Campbell almost immediately, who was first arrested on June 23, 2001, 5 days after Jones went missing. Detectives had delayed his arrest whilst weighing the possibility of endangering Jones's life, on the presumption that she was still alive, against the possibility of Campbell leading the police to her. During police interviews, Campbell was described as uncooperative. In one 20-minute interview, Campbell refused to comment on 50 questions. The investigation included several appeals to the public for information, including reconstruction on the BBC television programme Crime Watch UK. During the investigation, over 900 police officers and support staff searched over 1,500 locations for Jones's body. Murder trial. The police who investigated Jones's disappearance were convinced within 2 months of her disappearance that she had been murdered. A police superintendent told the BBC that Campbell had developed a relationship with Danielle that was certainly inappropriate and probably unlawful. Jones tried to disengage, but Campbell resisted. By November 14, 2001, the Crown Prosecution Service decided that the police had enough evidence to prosecute Campbell for murder, even though it would be harder to secure a conviction without a body. In October 2002, Campbell went on trial for abduction and murder. The trial was unusual in the UK, as prosecutions for murder without a body are rare. The Crown's case rested upon several pieces of evidence. Jones had disappeared without contacting her parents, and was seen talking to a man in a blue Ford Transit van resembling Campbell's on the morning of her disappearance. The testing of blood-stained stockings found Jones's and Campbell's DNA on the stockings. Lip gloss used by Jones was also found in Campbell's home. A diary kept by Campbell revealed an obsession with teenage girls, with testimonies that Campbell had manipulated young girls into posing for topless photographs. Mobile switching center records demonstrated that Campbell's alibi of being at a DIY store half an hour. Jukes cites the media coverage of the Jones case as an example of the news media's eroticization of the victim in such cases, pointing to the news media's reports of the inappropriate, i.e. abusive, sexual relationship between victim and murderer, and the news media's publication of photographs of the victim's stockings. Wikipedia.org. Operation Spinnaker. The search for Danielle Jones. The disappearance of teenager Danielle Jones on June 18, 2001, sparked the launch of Operation Spinnaker, the most extensive investigation ever undertaken in Essex Police's history. Danielle Jones, 15, was last seen on Monday, June 18, 2001, when she left her home in East Tilbury to catch the bus to St. Clear's School in Stanford-le-Hope. Her walk from her home to the bus stop would normally take just 5 minutes, and other school pupils had seen her walking some of the way. A girl, matching her description, was seen getting into a blue transit-style van along part of her route to the bus stop. Initially started as a missing person inquiry, fears grew for Danielle, who was described as a normal girl who had not had any recent family arguments or problems at school. On Thursday, June 21, 2001, Detective Superintendent Peter Coltman was appointed to lead the investigation. Considerable inquiries had already been made into where Danielle might be, including interviewing friends and family members. However, the absence of any information or sightings was in the main causing alarm. Within 24 hours of a senior investigating officer being appointed, the inquiry picked up speed rapidly. Searches were being carried out, information was coming in, and a picture of Danielle's life was emerging. Danielle's uncle, Stuart Campbell, was arrested at midnight on June 22nd on suspicion of her abduction and released on police bail on June 25th. At the same time, the investigative work progressed, with real urgency, and a further line of inquiry needed to be developed. This was the search for witnesses and appeals to the public. The first press conference, held with Danielle's parents Linda and Tony Jones, gave the first indication of the huge interest and pressure this investigation would generate. Inspector Alan Cook was appointed as a dedicated media spokesman to cope with the demand for media interviews. The publication of Danielle's photograph generated hundreds of reported sightings, all of which had to be investigated. The scale of the public response risked hiding a vital piece of information within mountains of genuine, well-intended messages and reports. Meanwhile, the search operation was far more than anything Essex Police had undertaken before and required the design of a system and database to manage it. Members of the Essex Police search team were joined by colleagues from other forces and organizations, which on some days amounted to more than 100 personnel actively searching. An extensive public search of open land in Tilbury was organized, and more than 500 local community members helped. This community spirit was maintained throughout the investigation, with regular meetings of community representatives and police. Advice was sought from police colleagues by the investigating team, and based on significant research into similar incidents, it was probable that Danielle was dead. Stuart Campbell was arrested based on new evidence, and following a lengthy interview, was charged with several serious offenses and remanded in custody. Nevertheless, the hard work of sifting through information, analyzing data, and interviewing potential witnesses continued. The Crown Prosecution Service was consulted about progress and offered sound advice. One area that was becoming increasingly important was the possibility of a murder charge, even if Danielle's body could not be found. The case law on such a position was clear and set a high threshold of proof. Mobile phone records led to Stuart Campbell being tracked down, as her killer said Crown Prosecution Service lawyer Chris McCann. Mr. McCann, the head of the trials unit at Essex CPS, said, "With the advancement in modern forensic techniques, we are all used to cases where DNA points to the killer, and the chances of it being someone other than the defendant are put at millions to one. While forensic evidence is valid, it is rarely the only evidence against someone. In the case against Campbell, the evidence was so robust that I was convinced when I reviewed the case it was strong enough to put before a jury, even without any forensic evidence. Mobile phone records showed calls made by Campbell using Danielle's phone. These calls were received by his mobile phone at the crucial time after she went missing. This information pinpointed him as the chief suspect and placed him in the dock. Stuart Campbell was charged on November 14, 2001, with the murder of Danielle Jones. He was convicted at Chelmsford Crown Court on December 19, 2002, for the murder and abduction of his niece and sentenced to life imprisonment. He has since given notice of appeal. Nearly 1,000 Essex police personnel were involved in the investigation at various times. Deploying such large numbers of resources was a massive task. There were 8,236 police actions and 1,489 statements. Danielle's body has never been found, nor any of the items she was wearing the day she disappeared. Her school bag and mobile phone are also still missing. Essex Police Internet Unit 2008, Uncle with a Secret Obsession by Peter Gould, BBC News online correspondent. Thursday, December 19, 2002. For years, Stuart Campbell hid his secret from other family members. He was fascinated by teenage girls, and eventually his interest turned to his 15-year-old niece, Danielle. She had no reason to fear the man she knew only as her uncle, a trusted family member. But in reality, he was a sexual predator, prepared to betray that trust and take her life. He developed a relationship with Danielle that was certainly inappropriate and probably unlawful, says Detective Superintendent Peter Coltman. She tried to disengage herself, but he resisted. Danielle was last seen near her home in East Tilbury. On her way to catch the bus she took to school, she was seen with a man who drove a blue van. Stuart Campbell, a builder, had just such a vehicle and quickly became the focus of police attention. At that stage, however, there was nothing else to connect him with Danielle's disappearance. Detectives faced a dilemma. They could arrest the builder and bring him in for questioning, or they could wait and watch, hoping he would lead them to Danielle. In the context of a belief that Danielle was still alive and being held against her will, this was a tough decision, recalls Mr. Coltman. Would such action locate Danielle, or could it endanger her life? White stockings. He decided to arrest Campbell, but any hopes that this would result in Danielle reuniting with her parents were quickly dashed. When they searched his house, detectives found a canvas bag in the loft. It contained a pair of white stockings stained with blood. DNA tests showed a match for both Danielle and Campbell. There was also a diary detailing his contact with the girl, camera equipment, and material of a pedophile nature. Even without a body, police were by now in little doubt that they were dealing with a case of abduction and murder. Danielle's parents, who had been clinging to the hope their daughter was alive, had to face the fact that her uncle had killed her. As the search for Danielle's body continued, detectives were learning more about Campbell's interest in teenage girls. He approached them in the street, posing as a photographer, and invited them into his home. It emerged after the trial that Campbell was given a 12-month suspended sentence jail term in 1989 after holding a 14-year-old girl at his home and photographing her in a karate suit. He had initially been charged with abducting the girl. "I will seek to re-interview Campbell," says Detective Chief Superintendent Steve Reynolds, the head of the Force's Crime Division. "I will appeal to him to cooperate so Tony and Linda Jones can at least have a funeral service for Danielle and grieve properly. I am determined to find her body."